What Jasmine Crockett delivered in this hearing wasn't just a heated moment. It was a rare instance of a lawmaker cutting directly to the underlying truth of our political conflicts instead of dancing around them. She begins by doing something almost no one does in these hearings.
Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to our governors. And I want to say I apologize. I apologize for the abuse that you are facing in this committee that is supposed to be about waste, fraud, and abuse. And I also apologize for wasting your time because this is nothing more than political theater. Now, again, this committee is supposed to be about waste, fraud, and abuse. We did not have to have this faux creation of DOGE. The committee itself, that is our job. So what I want to talk about is something that the American people may want to know, which is economically, how is this impacting them? These failed immigration policies that are only put on so that they can have a show, because we have a reality show president who seemingly still believes that this is all about TV instead of real lives. So let me talk about something really quickly, because I want to clarify something, because I believe that all of you understand the importance of something like tourism. Are you aware, any of you, are you aware as to whether or not tourism in the United States is anticipated to decrease to the extent that we are estimated to lose $12.5 billion in international vendor spending in just the year 2025?
I can answer as the tourism capital of the country.
I assume you could.
Tourism's already down. It is down in the North Country, where the Canadians refuse to come over because of the hostility toward their country. It's happening in New York City. It's happening at our sporting events here, our theater. There's a ripple effect throughout our entire economy because of the change in attitude that our country, that once welcomed people from all over the world to visit and recreate and to live here, now feels like a very hostile place to them. It is going to have an economic impact on our bottom line, without a doubt.
So let's talk about it a little bit more. So I am supposed to have a number of FIFA games in Dallas, and I am fully anticipating that we are going to have a problem because I've been receiving phone calls that people don't feel safe coming here, and it's not the immigrants. It's this government that is making them feel unsafe. But let me also do this, because they love to cherry pick. They can find, any one person that has been killed. And if they've been killed by an immigrant, then God darn it, every single immigrant is going out and they are killers. And that is the problem. But they don't want to talk about white supremacy. I don't know how many hearings we going to have about the fact that there's been this one immigrant that killed this one person. And no, I'm not excusing any killings by them or white supremacists. But they haven't had these hearings. We didn't have a hearing on Buffalo and what happened there. We didn't have a hearing on El Paso and what happened there. We didn't have a hearing on Charleston and what happened there. So it's interesting that they pick and choose, because it seems like they love to pal around with the white supremacists, and so they don't want to talk about certain other things. But economically, I want to make sure that we're making this point again, because I know that Governor Pritzker, you were the beneficiary of a lot of things from the state of Texas. And a lot of people believe that Republicans are fiscally responsible, but instead they are actually fiscally irresponsible, because what he spent was a whopping $221 million transporting people from Texas to your state. Something tells me that he could have done something else with that $221 million. In addition to that, I know that there's been some conversations about what's going on in LA, and they want to say that it's riots because they didn't want people to keep talking about, say, the Epstein files or whatever other drama was popping off between the president and his little friend. So they wanted to change the conversation to immigration because they feel like, well, the polling is in our benefit. But let me tell you something. If they cared about making sure we were going to be fiscally responsible, they would tell the American people that it cost them $134 million to send the National Guard to LA for the quote unquote riots that the governor didn't ask for, nor did the mayor of LA ask for. And they sent them over there, and they say that they care about our service members, yet they sent them and they were laying on the floor. They did not provide for food. So I don't know why we would believe that, number one, they want to fix this. They don't want to fix this, because the brokenness is a feature, not a flaw of the system, because it is beneficial to them when it comes to campaigning. If they can't stoke fear, then why are they going to have anybody vote for them? Because that's what people are doing. They're voting out of fear. But Ms. Perryman, we know each other a little well. And I know you got a law degree. And it seems like we all need law degrees in here nowadays to understand the Constitution. So really briefly, I just want to make this point. There is a certain person that was afforded, say, due process. But let's say if Donald Trump had been charged with all of these cases that he got charged with in 4 different jurisdictions. If he wasn't afforded due process, there could have been a possibility that he just would have been locked up and thrown somewhere, right?
That would be a possibility.
And then maybe we wouldn't have a tariff war or anything else that we're dealing with or all the other nonsense. But the point is, he was afforded due process. And regardless of the political opposition, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, I thought, believe that due process should be afforded to everybody, even him.
Due process is for everyone.
Okay, so the Fifth Amendment doesn't say that it's just for the people that are Americans.
It does not.
It says anybody on our soil.
It's for everyone.
Okay, it's pretty simple. I don't know why we are having.
Apologizing to the witnesses for the way the committee is being misused. That immediately reframes the situation. Instead of treating the spectacle as normal, she reminds viewers that this committee is supposed to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse, not generate it. Crockett lays out something many Americans sense but don't always have the language for. The immigration crisis has become a political performance, not a policy discussion. She points to the real economic consequences that barely get mentioned in televised hearings: tourism dropping, billions in expected losses, international visitors hesitating to come here not because of immigration, but because the United States now feels unstable and hostile. That's a serious economic cost that affects jobs, local businesses, and tax revenue, yet it rarely makes headlines because it doesn't fit the fear narrative. Her point about FIFA events is equally important. People around the world aren't avoiding Texas because of immigrants. They are avoiding it because of political extremism, aggressive rhetoric, and the perception that state and federal leaders are fueling chaos rather than managing it. That's a fascinating reversal. The very politicians shouting the loudest about security may be creating the insecurity they claim to fight. Then there's the sharp and necessary pushback on selective outrage. Crockett exposes how Republicans elevate isolated crimes committed by immigrants while ignoring deadly acts of white supremacist violence happening on our own soil. This isn't a small oversight, it's a deliberate political strategy. If you acknowledge that extremist violence committed by citizens is a far bigger threat than immigrant crime, the narrative collapses. So the conversation gets narrowed, distorted, and weaponized. She moves seamlessly into the money trail, highlighting that Republican leaders aren't just stoking fear. They are spending enormous amounts of taxpayer dollars in ways that actually make the situation worse. The $221 million Texas spent transporting migrants across the country didn't solve a single systemic issue. Instead, it created political theater while draining resources that could have helped manage the situation humanely and efficiently. Her example of the National Guard deployment to Los Angeles is another overlooked detail. $134 million spent without the request of local officials. Service members sleeping on floors. No plan, no coordination, just expensive symbolism. The pattern becomes undeniable. The GOP calls itself fiscally responsible while burning through money to stage political moments. The most important idea she delivers comes near the end. The chaos isn't accidental, it's essential. A functional immigration system would remove one of the GOP's most reliable political weapons. If fear is a campaign strategy, stability becomes a threat. Crockett isn't just calling out hypocrisy, she's explaining how fear-based politics operates and why certain problems are never allowed to be solved. She closes by grounding everything in constitutional principles. Due process is not a reward for citizenship. It is a foundational right that applies to every person on American soil. And she uses Donald Trump as the example. He received every procedural protection the Constitution promises. He got hearings, appeals, and opportunities to make his case. Crockett's point is that rights don't shrink because the political moment is heated. If we abandon due process selectively, we abandon it entirely. Moments like this matter because they remind viewers that behind every political talking point are real people, real costs, and real constitutional stakes. Crockett is urging Americans to see past the surface drama and understand how power is being used and misused. If you found this analysis helpful, consider subscribing so you never miss a breakdown that gets past the noise and digs into what these hearings actually mean for the country.